Okay, so I decided I'd come on here today, and there's just a little work I wanted to try to work on here, and just to kind of pass a little time away. And as you all are going to see here, it's almost coming to the end of 2022, almost 2023, so I decided it was just a good time to come on here and show you all how over a year ago, almost a year ago, whenever it was, I made these little blanks that, or these little scraps, leftover scraps that came out in a good shape to be made into sea lions. So I drew the lines on them from which to be carved so they could be sea lions. And decided as I go about it, I would come on here to carve them, show you all just a little bit of how it gets done, and I say little work shall brighten our days. It's just that this little work of a sea lion is kind of little ways coming about the way it goes. I say, you know, it's just the things that we kind of carve along these lines, make it so it's going to be just a way to turn out so fine. And getting down to it, there's a little more to say. I came down to the place where I carved along the nose just in front of the ears. I think I'm going to take care of that same little step on this one as well. Have little things to talk about over this year, and decided it might even be a good time to kind of talk about how business has been better this year than it was in other years. I've been away from the coffee shop so much, and down to the point where I've been working so much more. Even at my last show, marked down a lot of prices to try to get more things sold. Got a couple little stuffed animals that my niece is going to open. She was going to come for this little break with her mother, but it turned out that it's probably going to be a little difficult to do because we kind of got it where all the things that are just getting in the way of things, like the weather and all. Did decide to make a little trip out today like I hadn't made in a few days, and decided I'd just go over to the and here's how we got the face to come along. Gonna be a little more work, and I wanted to tell you all about how I went over to Jet's Pizza this afternoon, went over to the bank to deposit some cash, and I'd say for all the good sales I've made over the year, I'm kind of got a little bit more to invest to take business a little further. Just did that little carving along back of the neck, along the back of the ear there, and kind of got a little ways to go about this, you know, take it so it's going to have its little ways to go, and done with all the work. It's going to be, I say, oh, the trashy work. The work it comes down to being. Oh, will work is going to take its way upon us. And do know, for one thing, that sea lions are kind of like a winter-themed animal. Kind of like those little polar bear sets that I made of the mother polar bear and her cubs. And I'd say yes for how it goes with these little things, you know. Apparently there's a place in the wood that's kind of Knotty, naughty here. Don't know what it is, but it's coming its way down, and I'd say this little sea lion is going to be a great creature. And I always had questions about sea lions when I was a kid. Sometimes I used to wonder if they were a lion that lived in the sea. But no, they really aren't. They're actually a little more closely related to seals. You see how I got it along on each side? Now I'm going to do the other one. And of all things, you see that they eat fish like seals, and sea lions actually kind of have a bark, and they kind of make some kind of noise that is probably similar to that of a lion. That is how they get the name sea lion. And so that's kind of where the names come about. They always have predators in the ocean to look out for. They got sharks and killer whales, and they always got the ways that they have to watch out for them in the zoo. I remember being in a zoo when I was a teenager where there were some sea lions. They had to put up warning signs about them and put up a little sign by the little sea lion pool that says, "Ouch, sea lions bite." So they were kind of warning people to kind of keep their hands and fingers clear so they wouldn't get bitten by the sea lions at the zoo. I know one thing for sure, that it's always neat to kind of go into pools and zoos and all the places where you go and see critters. And I've even seen how some people have been to SeaWorld, never been there. I've seen on the internet how people have been to the Newport Aquarium and never been there. And all the things that are neat that you see in life, you see them in places where you'd go if you kind of had the time or the money to do it. But it's kind of a time when, you know, it's probably going to get there for me eventually. One day I'll be able to do some of that stuff, you know, and try to make it so, with all the extra money I'm going to make it so I can do it a little better, you know. Let's say as of this will work. Please come along next. And now you probably see that where we got the ears, there comes a little moment when we make this little line here. In fact, one difference between seals and sea lions is that sea lions have ears, sea lions can hear, seals are deaf. If they have ears, they don't work, so that's what I've heard, is they just can't hear very well. But that's for this little creature, you know. They got little ears that stay in the form of their head, but it's almost kind of like the ears of a bird. They kind of have them down inside their skulls, but don't really have ears that stick out like ours do, or like other creatures do. Even an owl, to that matter. You know, those little tufts of hair you see on the side of its head, those aren't its ears. Its ears are actually located inside its head, where it can kind of hear little distances in the sound like that, unlike what you hear in human terms. Well, I got that little bit of work done here, there's going to come a moment when we're going to kind of make a little slice along here, make it so this wood is going to be a little brighter and heavier, and make it so we're going to see little better things coming on with it. And so as for a little work we do, I say this is the work we've got in our hands now. Of course, this one, it came out in a different type of grain shape, but I'd say the grain is good for the size of the creature and for the direction of the creature, the way of the carving, how it goes. And of all things I used to read about as a kid, there were sea cows, manatees, dugongs, a lot of those little creatures that are often unheard of, you know. Sometimes it gets a little hard to make a creature out like what you intend for it to be, but it's all going to come out to be for the better in the end. And I say for this, you see, I've already gotten down to where I've sort of gotten the head in. We're going to take care of the little face on this one as well. Well, I say we already got that, so we're going to have a little more better ways to go here. We already got the back as well on this one, but do think there's probably a little chipping to do off the back of this one too, to try to round off and get rid of all the saw marks that are on it. I say now we're coming down to another little point where we can finally work along the head of this one, finally make it so it's going to be kind of right as it can be, make it so it's going to brighten little things here, make it so we see better deals in our work and what we do, and how we kind of see that this little work is coming its way now, and finally come down to where we come down to the neck of the sea line, give it the extra work it needs, and put a little more extra time and effort into the little buddy here. And so, as you see, it's going to be the best thing you see. And so, finally, we've got the work to come along here. I say, this little time in my life, we got a little ways to go. Blessed children, blessed secrets, and I say we can kind of move along. Do think there's not much to try to go along much further, but except I will say we're going to kind of go about the chin here, go about the sea line and its little chin and its body, take the head and point it upward where we see a little light coming into the soul, and see a little light coming into the little sea line head, and make it so it's all gonna work out, make it all so better. See little work come along this way, make it so we're gonna try to drown out all the memory of where all this extra excess wood has to be, and try to get it where it's going to be completely out, and probably one day make some sea lions where we're going to have them bouncing the ball on their nose, you know. That would be great to have, just to see how it'll be. And finally, we kind of got to get a little work done to go down the neck of this one here. And in the end, I'm going to be showing how they're going to turn out to be. So, I say, it can be hard to get followers and brand deals when you're not doing much of what you can, but it's just one of those things where, you know, just gotta be so disabled that you impress people by what you do. And so, with this little thing we got here, it's making its way come down to us, and see how we're gonna make it be. It's just see how it comes along. To my best memory, these little pieces were mahogany. Forgot to mention the wood, but they were kind of left over from some other things that were cut from mahogany, and looking back, it was probably some bears from what I see. Could have been anything. Horses, something. So, as for a little work that comes this way, we know it'll be interesting to sell sea lions in the spring, since they're kind of a winter type animal, but that's probably pretty much, I'd say, the way it's going to go when we get these done. I say, we gotta trim on the tails and make them so they're lasting bright and perfectly well. I say, all the bright little dives of life, and all the things I see in life. We're going to come along to this point where we get to a good stopping place. Got little chips to brush off here. No telling what these chips are going to become. You know, hard to use anything as bedding these days. Try to get the worst of the chips into the pan, but that's going to be a little hard to do. Whether or not it's going to be 2023 before I get on here and do a video where I finish up the sea lions, I don't know. But I will say that this is going to be all for today, or all for this video at least. Might get a moment or two and get back on to record another. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.